Seems to me our faith is only worth anything if it can actually speak to matters of life and death. Like if our faith as Christians actually speaks to the biggest, toughest, most difficult things we wrestle with, then it's worth engaging with. But if Christianity, if our religious faith is simply about the occasional spiritual pick-me-up, if it's just about sort of a couple of helpful hints to help my kids do better in school or have a slightly happier home life, there's lots of other ways I can get a little pick-me-up. I could, for $5 get a coffee drink at my local coffee shop or Starbucks and not have the commitment of a religion. But if Christianity really is about the deep, big questions about getting through life and death and the hope of life beyond the grip of death, now we're talking about something. It's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the story we're going to look at this coming Sunday, the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus and Jesus. Because it's a story not about avoiding death, but about Jesus being present with his close friends through death and out the other side. This is not a story about Jesus narrowly averting disaster and everybody feeling good in the end because, at least we didn't have to deal with somebody dying. But Jesus is away when Lazarus gets sick, and Jesus deliberately stays away further, knowing that it will mean that Lazarus dies. Jesus then shows up on the scene after it's too late, after Lazarus has died, and his sisters Mary and Martha come with hot tears and angry questions, implicitly accusing Jesus of having let them down. If you had been here, Jesus, our brother wouldn't have died. If you had been here, you could have done something different. Very quickly, it's clear the story of Lazarus is not a cheerful pick-me-up story like getting a latte or going to see your favorite movie. This is a story about what do you do when it feels like God has let you down. And Jesus enters that space and takes all those angry questions. And Jesus himself, you can tell his heart is breaking too when he goes to the edge of the tomb where they've laid Lazarus, and he breaks down and weeps and falls down on the ground, just shaking with grief over the loss of his own dear friend, even knowing that Jesus is well aware he is minutes away from calling Lazarus back to life. But he takes all those angry questions, he takes all the doubt, he takes all the accusations that he's let them down, and this feeling in the room that it's too late. Once someone has died, that's it, there's no hope, right? And there Jesus speaks those powerful words to the dead man, Lazarus, come out. This is a story about the big questions about life and death and life beyond the grip of death. And so it may not be an easy story to navigate through, but it's one I'm grateful that we have. In some ways, it's spare and unsentimental. I mean, this is not even a story about Lazarus pleading for help and asking and then being rewarded for his earnest prayer for help, because Lazarus can't even ask for help. Lazarus is dead. He can't even initiate the request for Jesus' help. Jesus instead has to do all the heavy lifting, has to reach into the realm of death and call Lazarus back to life with the same authoritative voice as God speaking in creation, let there be light. And light that doesn't exist comes into being. That same kind of creative, life-giving power, Jesus speaks again. For us as Christians, our hope is not that because we believe in Jesus, we can avoid the hard stuff, or that because we believe in Jesus, we won't have to deal with death, but rather we'll follow Jesus and go into the valley of the shadow of death. Our lives will be touched by it. People we care about will struggle and suffer. We will grieve with people. Sometimes we'll be the ones weeping. Sometimes we'll be the ones bearing angry questions about where was God when this happened? Why did God let this happen? And we'll walk with people through that. If you haven't been there yet in life, you will. To be a follower of Jesus is not to get an escape hatch to avoid that, but rather to know Jesus has gone there first, has taken all the angry questions, has cried and wept those tears himself, as well as receiving them from others, and still, in the midst of that, is able to call life out of death. There's no avoiding the reality of death in this life. There's no way of avoiding sadness and grief and sorrow. That's part of how it works. That's part of the price of admission to be on this planet. But the story of Jesus and Lazarus and Mary and Martha is a reminder of a God who goes with us into those places of death and promises not to let us go, who calls us into new life and into resurrection. That story is what we're going to wrestle with and find blessings in this coming Sunday for the 5th Sunday of Lent, and we invite you to be a part of it. See you then.